Okay. Okay, and now we are live. So now we are live. The idea of today's day. So maybe let's make like an official welcome. Yes. So welcome. So we are actually from 1, 2, 3, 4 countries. Yes. From Brazil, from Argentina, from Chile, and Mexico. So we represent actually quite big portion of Latin America today. And I'm extremely really happy we have with us Miguel, former congressman of Mexico, who is a chair of the club in Mexico. And actually he woke up very early because he's in California right now. I would like to welcome very warmly Carlos Finaz. As I was mentioning, we are inviting him so many times to Sao Paulo for Intersolar South America. And we have Florian from Intersolar in audience. So let's make, regards to Florian. And then we always wanted to get Carlos in, to our gala and also to bring him to Intersolar, but there was always some conflict of different events. Yes, so sometimes you see one disruption can help in reaching other goals. Yes, and I would like to welcome very warmly Ruggiero, yes, who is president and CEO, founder of AppSolar, the solar association from Brazil, and also yes, and also very, very good friend. Yes, because I think that what is also great always great, I would say, in Latin America, that we become friends, not only just you see of the business, but also on a private level. Yes, and last year I spent, I think, like 3 months almost in Brazil. Yes, so actually I was supposed to fly to Brazil, you see, but I decided to cancel the flight. And welcome Lucas Troya, who represents today Leonardo. I think Leonardo is so busy with all this situation, so Lucas will tell us more. And Lucas is at our CleanTech Business Club, director for international relationship. Yes, so thank you so much once again for coming. Sorry, because Roque, he disappeared from the picture. So Roque is from Argentina. He's working for University of Buenos Aires, and as Marcelo was mentioning, he's one of the most knowledgeable persons in solar industry in Argentina. Yes. So thank you so much. So Lucas, so you are now replacing the chair. Yes. During our panel discussion. So maybe you can make some welcoming words.
Hey guys, thank you, Thomas. It's a pleasure to be here in a different way. We are used to be together, face to face, looking at the eyes and giving hugs. But now the world has changed. As Carlos was saying, it's a strange and totally unexpected situation. But I think there is its positive features and positive things to mankind, and I think we will recover from that stronger. And it's an opportunity to evaluate everything we are doing, how we do business, how we treat each other, and so it's how the things will work from now. I think this kind of events, online events, will gain a lot of strength, and it will become much more often for us to be like that. The work from home as well. I think home office, it proves itself as a very strong way of doing things. There's no necessary. It's not necessary to be at the office. So I think a lot of things will change, and for sure in the energy sector as well. I think the whole chain is being affected in Brazil. Rodrigo can tell more about it, but we are facing a decrease on demand and a lot of things being discussed. And for sure, it's a huge transformation at the world and the relations and everything. So difficult times for sure, challenging times, but also some opportunities may appear. And I think as we always say, Thomas, together we are stronger. And even though we are a bit far from each other, we can still have our friendship and our good relationship as a strength during these tough times.
Okay, so actually, we forgot about one thing, you know, in order to give you some more strength. Yes, so we are always playing today this video. I think this is quite symbolic because our goal is really to unite people around the world. Yes.
Forget the war. Think about how it could be. A new mindset has arrived, where to share has become our greatest power.
It is this energy that guides us, will enlighten us, where meaning and purpose is a flame.
Burn inside every soul on the planet.
Welcome to the human-to-human model, uniting and inspiring leaders globally.
To build together with meaningfulness and joy.
Opening new possibilities for people.
Anticipating disruption. Rethinking society.
Who will reach their potential because the future is today.
Join us
To be sustainable plus 100 world.
And I think right now is clearly the way to act. Lack of clean energy will affect the Earth's core later.
I find that when people begin making small changes, they gradually get bigger because they get this feeling, I am doing something.
So we moved from greed-based civilization to human value-based civilization. Making money is a happiness. Making other people happy is a super happiness.
Wondering about your future? So bring your DNA to us today.
Amazing, Thomas.
Yes, but you know what is the most interesting? Let me see if Wesley is in the room. I think
it looked like we just did it.
Yes, because actually
it's so present, so like we've just done the video. It was like some months and almost 1 year ago, and it's really very present, very
up to date actually.
Yes.
Because what we discussed, yes, it was so important to unite before, but especially now when we unite and we work together, this united DNA is even more important than in the past. Yes, so we did video 2 years ago, so even some people from the audience are in this video, and it's so relevant. Yes,
totally. Now even more.
Yes, so I suggest that so the goal of today's panel is to discuss what is the current situation, to exchange also the opinions which are in different countries, and maybe there are already some measures which help you to continue the business, yes, in these circumstances. Oh, let me just upgrade Wesley because he can. I would like to promote him to the speaker also, because it was actually Wesley's idea to make the video. So Wesley, you should be soon in the room. so Wesley is a director of CleanTech Business Club in Brazil. We just watched the video, and our chairman almost crying. Yeah? Yes, so it was Wesley's idea, yes, and because also what I feel when I go to Latin America that people are very warm. Yes, so I was thinking, you see, in Europe, maybe in some other countries, this personal relationship is not so close. Yes, and in Latin America, it's so always so close, so warm. So I was wondering, how do you guys, manage this psychologically? Yes, because you see, like within the club and within this initiative, we were also thinking not only about business, but first to create a joint resilience, yes, between us, to help to support each other, yes, because we can make business, but if we are down psychologically, it's gonna be difficult even to make business, yes. So I would like that we exchange these opinions. How do you manage this amongst your employees, amongst your colleagues in the organization? Do you help them in some way? Do you have some tools? And also, how do you manage, this situation with the business? And how do you think that, then during next month, it will be happening? So who would like to, maybe we will give a floor first to Carlos, yes, because Carlos, you see, we never met other persons we met, and then I will ask Rock, and then our colleagues that we are always meeting in Latin America. So Carlos, please.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Hi to everybody in America or Europe. Here in Chile, we're in the morning, so this is good morning for me. I am the executive director for ACERA. ACERA is the Chilean Association for Non-Conventional Renewables and Storage. We have been in business since 2003. And our aim is to develop in Chile the right framework for the extensive development of renewable energies, especially wind, solar, geothermal, mini hydros, biomass, and also sea energies. Well, the impact of coronavirus has been, as in any place, unexpected. We ran 3 webinars in the last weeks where we joined people from the industry, and really it's amazing how it's a common opinion of everybody that their business continuity plans did not consider a response for coronavirus. I think it's been very hard, the adaptation for this situation. In our case, we're a small group of people, 9 people, and we moved to home work, remote work, and it's working, I would say, fine. And we've been replacing the usual communication channels by remote work and using Zoom or kind of tools. Of course, there is a distance that exists between people. It's not the same to be in the same room that seeing people in a screen. But probably the way to tackle this is to make longer meetings and not just focus on professional or technical matters. It's necessary also to have time to develop and keep the human relations in this kind of communications. Probably we will be in this kind of work for the next month or 2 months. This moment in Chile is voluntary quarantine, but we will keep it in order to save the health of our people. Regarding the industry, it's a lot of learnings, I would say. In Chile, for your idea, at this moment, we are building more than 2.5 gigawatts of solar plants. It's almost, during this year and the next year, we will almost double the current installed capacity in the solar power plants. But also in wind, there's about 1.7 gigawatts and so on. That means a large challenge for the logistics chain. Of course, as in any country, we bring almost all the technology from abroad and from China, of course, mainly. And also to keep people working in the field, and also comply with reasonable health care practices. That we did a survey with our members a couple of weeks ago, and companies feel that the project will be delayed, but not as much as one may think. Of course, provided that the coronavirus crisis in Chile is not deepened. So far, it seems that we are doing a good job in keeping the amount of deaths and new contagious cards. So this is going to have an effect. I think the industry is managing this, and we may enter in more detail later. But of course, there is a lot of, probably the most important problem is the lack of certainty that we see in the future. We don't know how much this is going to last. We don't know what's going to happen in other countries with investors, and these are still open questions.
Okay, so maybe we can switch now to Argentina. So, Rock.
Thank you very much. Thomas. I would like to start saying that our situation is not really that different with regards to COVID compared to Chile. The big difference you will find it in the finance situation, which was certainly previous. I think COVID, and everybody here considers the same, has worsened the chances to get international finance, which was the most difficult problem to face for the investors. So essentially, we have 2,000 megawatts under construction under different situations, but most of the projects that were to discuss again with the finances, with the bankers, are already stalled. They were stalled basically since May 2018. And the situation has just worsened because of coronavirus, because the prospects of the economy in Argentina are quite bad for the financial world. I mean, we have the almost 4,000 basic points. Now it's come down, and it's all around the way the external debt discussion, the almost default where we are, is sorted out. So the uncertainty is more related to what will happen with the Argentinian economy than what is happening now with coronaviruses. By the way, the quarantine has been very effective. If you can measure it in people being affected, in deaths, and Argentina is faring quite well on that. But certainly the impact, particularly when it comes to distributed energy. We have two laws, one for the utilities and one for distributed generation, and almost nothing is happening in distributed generation. There's been an exception for the quarantine for the people working in energy, but it only works for big plants. It's not for distributed or small, let's say below 1 megawatts. That is absolutely stopped. On the other hand, there is a discussion with the government whether there will be a fiscal stimulus, as in any other kind of green package or Green Deal package. And that could happen. I mean, the government is already delivering quite a lot of money with the risk of inflation, of course. And part of that could be delivered into the renewable energy investments, but still is on the planning. It also is related to the climate planning, the national contributions, national determined contributions. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And we expect that the World Bank and the multilateral, particularly Inter-American Development Bank, will support these distributed energy projects. But still is a lot to be discussed within Argentina and with these sources. That's all.
Yeah, I was muted. So maybe we can move now to, thank you so much. We can move to Mexico and Miguel. So we met a couple of months ago, and what changed, and how does COVID-19 influence the business in Mexico?
Well, first of all, good morning to everybody. It's morning here, and the sun is only starting to come out. So thank you. Thank you for having everybody here. Mexico is going through as a country, is going through a very difficult state right now. The country and the current government it's being attacked by the industry of not doing a lot more for the industry. The current government, it's working towards saving the government itself, saving the country, and the industry, as we call them, maquiladoras, the industry, it's really on a one-to-one head-on base with the current government, because the government has already said that they will not have any type of stimulus packages for the industry, meaning the industry of Mexico. So that is a huge problem. And the different associations like Coparmex, Canacintra, are having hard times with this problem. Bear in mind that also that we will have a referendum, as we call it now, in 2021, 2022, which will allow us to vote to see if we want to keep the president in power or we want to change it. And of course, in Mexico, that has brought now an issue that it's starting to become political issue. How do we vote the president? How do we get rid of the new president? So a little bit of the coronavirus issue combined with not having all the resources and the money, we certainly were not prepared as a country for what happened. And the government does not have the willingness to help the industry, meaning the industriales, the entrepreneurs, the companies, the entities. Their position is you have your own money, you have profits, you have deep pockets, you save yourselves. But in Baja California, which is where I am, it's a little bit different story. The COVID has become very, very difficult for us, even stronger than in the rest of the country. We are the backyard of California. And if you know, California is going through a very tough process. And the border town, Mexicali, Calexico, San Diego, with Tijuana and Tecate, are backyards of California. So that has become a big issue in the sense where the border, the border crossing, it's becoming limited in terms of how can cross, who can cross, and when can you cross the border. But with all this problems that has this created, and specifically because the border towns in Baja California, it's where mainly most of the maquiladoras are established, meaning the industries that are companies here right at this border. That has become a problem because they're all non-operational anymore. If you're non-essential, you can't operate. So you have a lot of people. You have a lot of people that were asked to go home, Thomas, and it has started to become other issues, other problems, social problems of having the mother, father, the son, daughter all in the same house all day long. And that has become an issue. It's starting to be a problem. And you can see them now in so many jokes and in so many things popping everywhere, but it's just becoming a problem. Everybody in the same house all day. It's nothing that you wanted to happen here in Mexico.
Even though you are family guys, yeah?
You got people, they're not used to sharing the internet and the computers, and you got families that only have 2 computers or 1 computer or 2 screens, and it's becoming an issue. It's I see Lucas there, and I see my friend there from Chile, which, by the way, and other places, and Latin American people, you can't cage them in the house. You got to let them go out. So, the backyards are not enough for all of us. So you got problems. You got other types of problems. People want to go out. So you can't. So even this weekend, we had 5 or 6 parties with more than 60 people that were reported, and teenagers, unfortunately, I'm 56, but teenagers, my daughter, she's 24 and she's going crazy. She's going mad. She wants to go out. They want to go out. They want to go to the movies. They want to spend money. They're millennials. So there's this other issue about really understanding the problem of staying home. you have also your other impacts, which are the groceries, people making lines, the banks in Mexico are closed, the ATM systems have collapsed a couple of times, so that has created some other issues. But you know, we will we will just move on and we will work it out. But I have to tell you, the industry, the solar industry, the wind industry for Baja California has not stopped. It continues. We have a huge opportunity going on now because the mandate for the California Energy Commission is that by 2030, a big percentage of their energy has to come from renewable sources. And this was not, even though we knew the document was there, even though we know that the free trade agreement had agreed to renew all this, it wasn't until a couple of weeks ago when it got re-signed and got renewed, and now it's become mandate. And California, through Baja California, has created this huge opportunity, and specifically for Baja California, which is the backyard of California, of San Diego. And we haven't stopped working for the last 3 months, even though we knew, we did not know how much this coronavirus was going to hit us in terms of operational and movement. But the reality is that here in Baja California, the energy projects have become now more important for export. So now we have more than 4,000 megawatts of solar and wind energy, which are starting to be pre-developed, as I say, wind measurements and site control, all those other things, but for export. And there's more than 4,000 megawatts of projects that will be to export into the United States. And for us, particularly here in Baja California, the issue of investment has not become a problem. The NAT Bank is the infrastructure bank for projects for border towns between the United States and Mexico, continues to support the investments because the money is there already. They can't use it for anything else. So either they invest the money on the Mexican border side or they do it on the US border side. In this case, Calexico, California has developed more than 8 gigawatts of pure energy just in solar for border towns. So a little bit of difficult for the industry, for the typical industry, issues, social issues and related issues and family issues and not having enough face masks or not having the proper gear and the issues and the problems that could arise between the federal government and the municipal governments, which are every day. But in terms of business opportunities for particular Baja California, we're booming. And people say, how can that be? Everybody everywhere else is it's stalled, not here, because we have a huge business partner. We have California, and they need 4 or 5 or 6 gigawatts in the next 6 years, and the only place they can get it is from Baja California. And the mandate also says that everything that gets developed in Baja California and gets connected to the grid in California, it's considered on net. So California has to go and purchase energy from Baja California before they can go and purchase energy from their current local neighbors, meaning Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado. So they first have to come and buy it from here. So all that has opened a big opportunity in terms of where to cross land sites. It's incredible, but we have this coronavirus, and Sempra Energy, it's in the process of installing 130 more megawatts of wind with Vestas, and we're in the process of exporting. So in a nutshell, what happened to Baja California is that we are becoming a maquiladora of energy, and we export the energy, and that's going to be a huge business, but not just for Baja California, but also for most of the border towns across Mexico and the United States. the impact of the coronavirus, the issues to the current day-to-day living, the process of being safety, the masks, and everything else related to what everybody else has experienced, it's also happening here. The only difference is that the major impact has been the borders being closed. People in the border cross every single day, and so going to the United States and coming back from the United States into Mexico, it's typical. I sometimes cross 3-4 times into the United States. People don't really understand, but that is a big problem, having the borders closed. But in terms of shortage, water, milks, food, Baja California does not have that problem. And mainly because there's always been a good commercial market. And the market in terms of commercial and exports and imports between California and Mexico continues to operate on a daily basis. So the COVID problems that you could look in other places are more strong in the rest of the country, in the interior of the country. With some places where it's becoming a nightmare is Cabo San Lucas and Baja California Sur, because they don't have any place to supply unless they go through Baja California, and going from Baja California South to Baja California Sur, there are blockages. So they're having an issues, but up here, it's not a problem. And the other thing which I thought was very, very smart from the maquiladora owners is that they are very well organized, even though the government will not support them. But what they did in terms of renewable energies, they started looking into different alternatives. So they had looked at their battery solutions. They had looked at their mini micro wind turbine solutions, their Barcila gas solutions. And what has happened is that now they're all on sync. And now you got Telsa. They used to have a small office. Now they've just recently bought a big building. So Telsa is now heavily here. Siemens is here. So the borders in terms of the business that they generate and the opportunities for renewables in the borders it's not created an impact. It's booming.
Okay, thank you so much, Miguel. Let me just make some surprise. Yeah? Let's see, because there is Antonio in the audience. I will upgrade him to panelist just to say hello, because Antonio is our vice chair. So Antonio, you are coming now as a panelist. If you have nothing to hide, you can put camera on. So Antonio is a former Secretary of State for Renewable Energy in the state of São Paulo, and also director from the Ministry of Energy, and he's vice chair of the club in Brazil. So Antonio, if you wish, you can just join us as a panelist. Yes. And in the meantime, I will now switch to, I think, one of the most knowledgeable people in solar industry and one of the pioneers of solar, to Rodrigo. So Rodrigo, sorry that I put so much, first, Thomas. Because you see, like for me, I'm like almost like Brazilian, yes. So let's say that I put first foreigners, yes.
Thank you so much, Thomas. First
because
of all,
so active Solar on LinkedIn with all the actions that you overtaken. So I would like to ask you, so what is the situation?
Definitely. Well, first of all, greetings from Brazil, everyone. This is also the morning here. I hope you are all well. Thomas, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for us to be here with you today. Hello to Lucas, also a pleasure to be with you. Antonio Celso and our friends and colleagues that are attending this session, and also to those of you who will watch this later on. Well, my name is Rodrigo Sawaia. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AB Solar, the Brazilian Photovoltaic Solar Energy Association that represents more than 600 companies working with solar photovoltaics in Brazil. And as Thomas mentioned, since we started discussing all the situation and the impacts of COVID-19 in Brazil, many actions were taken. So first of all, I would just like to give you a very brief overview of where we are. First of all, the whole PV sector is feeling the pain of COVID-19 pandemic throughout the world. We can say that two big waves happened. First of all, it was a wave of supply, starting, of course, in the first epicenter, China, and the other Asian countries that produce many of the equipments that we use in PV throughout the world. This is also the case of Brazil, as more than 90% of the components are brought from China to Brazil for the projects, be it for small scale projects, what we call distributed generation, rooftop systems, or the large scale utility PV power plants. But there was a second wave. There was a wave of demand, and we're still living the pains of this wave. So currently in Brazil, demand went down significantly, especially for distributed generation systems. And this is very worrisome because small companies that work with distributed generation, they don't have the financial strength to overcome this storm alone. So we do need special initiatives for that. And since the pandemic started and the impacts in Brazil started, Thomas, AB Solar went to market very proactively. We created a new program, a new campaign that we called Solar Urgent. And we are tracking the quarantine initiatives from the Brazilian government, federal government, the Congress, and all the decision makers that are bringing new relief measures that will help the market and the sector survive throughout this phase, this difficult phase that we are living. We're also working directly with companies that already have PV projects operational in Brazil, because in some regions, the municipalities, they locked down even these power plants that are already operational. And we work together with the municipalities, the state governments and the federal governments to allow these power plants that are actually helping us with an essential service, which is bringing renewable electricity and cheap electricity to the population and to the society so that these projects could move forward. Imagine the impact if people at home would not have access to electricity, or the hospitals, or the other public buildings that are helping us pass through this phase. So it's essential that these power plants keep operating. And the same is true for the power plants that are being built. Many power plants were halted because of specific measures by the municipalities and state governments. And we have worked directly with the Ministry of Mines and Energy, with the federal government, with states governments, and with these municipalities to bring more clearness and to allow the projects to keep being developed, of course, following all the necessary health measures that are required. There is a parallel wave that's also very important to mention, and many of you might be following this topic, which is, I would call it a parallel shock wave, which was the oil price war that happened with participation of OPEC, Russia, and other major oil producers. And we could say that at least on the short term, the United States had a win as it managed to structure a deal with the support of the other parties, especially bringing Mexico back to the negotiating table. And it would be wonderful to hear Miguel's view on this topic, as Mexico was feeling that the deal was unpleasant for its oil industry, but the United States brought forward some measures to support Mexico in this process. And there is a lot of debate about what is the impact of these oil prices to renewable energies, and also to the competitiveness and the availability of natural gas. Some people believe that if prices go down, natural gas will become more competitive. Others, on the other hand, believe that if oil prices go down, the ways that are currently bringing more natural gas into the market, especially shale oil extraction, will be undermined. And because of that, less shale gas will be available on the market, and prices might even go up. So this is something to view on the big picture. But it's also important for us to keep in mind that for solar PV, although there are impacts on the short and the middle term, on the long term, we can say that solar PV is stronger than ever and still has a huge potential to help us bring the world forward into the 100% renewable vision. Additionally, I have to say that many governments, not only the federal, but state and municipality governments are now bringing forward initiatives to help develop stimulus packages to restart markets and bring the economy back on track. And as I mentioned, we have been following this topic very closely here in Brazil with our solar urgent new bulletins, information for the sectors. We have been developing also new partnerships with the main objective to help the small companies that are in the distributed generation market to keep their business afloat so they can pass through this storm and get on the other side in one piece. So especially labor rules, financing conditions, taxation, and also support of the demand recovery so that we can bring this back to business. And before I finish, I would just like to send you a message that you might be hearing every day, but it's also important for us to keep this in mind. Please stay home and stay safe. If you're in a region where the curve is still increasing in terms of total number of cases, please stay home and stay safe and stay connected for our solar sector moving forward. Thank you very much.
And solar and clean tech, Rodrigo. So tomorrow you will see also guys from all other clean technologies for the first time. And thank you so much, because I believe that you are doing a really great job with AppSolar. And I don't know, but I think you are one of the most active associations around the world, yes?
Thank you.
And just I would like to give the floor very shortly to Antonio. He was not foreseen as a speaker because he will be chairing the session on Friday, but as I saw him on the guest list, so I said, no, we need to give the floor also to Antonio because he's one of the pioneers of solar energy in Brazil. So Antonio, now you are on the spotlight.
I think his micro is off.
You need to unmute your microphone.
Alô?
Hello, hello.
Alô, Thomas?
Tudo bem?
Tudo bem, e vocês? Tudo bom?
Bom.
Bom, o Rodrigo, nos veremos na sexta, né? De novo, né? Aí eu falarei um pouco mais, né? Lucas, você me ajuda aí com o inglês?
Sure, I'll help him.
Bom dia a todos. Nós estamos com um problema aqui na rede, aqui na região onde eu moro, então eu não consegui entrar a tempo, né? Mas o Rodrigo foi muito claro quando ele expôs o problema atual hoje no Brasil, né? Ele deu um panorama que eu enxergo como real. Desde o ano passado, a realidade era encher os nossos reservatórios, fazer um planejamento do novo modelo de comercialização de energia. Quer dizer, estávamos pensando na modernização do setor elétrico, estávamos pensando em novos campos de petróleo, novas formas de exploração do gás natural, e fomos então aí impactados por essa crise, né? Onde a demanda caiu, o gás brasileiro, para que ele tem problemas, como tem o shale gas nos Estados Unidos, petróleo a menos de $40, fica difícil a gente começar a pensar em gás natural, né? Trazer uma outra realidade. Os leilões foram postergados, né? Não acredito em leilões para geração centralizada nesse período ainda. O Rodrigo me corrija se eu estiver errado. Também tem uma certa dificuldade de enxergar um leilão de demanda que estava previsto para o final do ano, né? Por conta até do preço do gás natural. Eu vejo um horizonte difícil, mas de certa forma, hoje, no momento que nós estamos, onde a geração distribuída já se igualava com a geração centralizada, eu vejo uma oportunidade da gente começar também a enxergar a geração distribuída como um setor de grande contribuição para a retomada do crescimento aqui na região, né, aqui no país, né? Porque você não enxerga, na geração distribuída tem uma pegada diferente, ela gosta do curto prazo, né, Rodrigo? Você consegue instalá-la de curto prazo, quer dizer, você não pensa numa expansão de longo prazo, como o governo vinha pensando, de 10 anos, para colocar aí 3, 4 giga anos no mercado, né? Eu acho que essa realidade agora ela vai ter que ser encarada de uma outra forma. E acho que o papel da geração distribuída, que no passado, até dezembro, ela vinha sendo discutida, a retirada de subsídios, a mudança do seu, quer dizer, o seu impacto no sistema, né? Esse pensamento vai ter que ser de uma forma alterado, né? E começar a pensar na geração distribuída como um grande aliado para a retomada do crescimento, onde nós vamos precisar, o governo terá que ter uma atuação muito forte, né, na área de infraestrutura. E acho que a geração distribuída ela traz junto de si o emprego, ela traz, de certa forma, um equilíbrio da carga, né, porque a carga caiu bastante, permite que a gente comece a pensar em um outro modelo tarifário de médio prazo. Enfim, eu acho que, apesar desses problemas todos que nós estamos enfrentando, ficando em casa, né, com essa dificuldade toda, eu enxergo um bom horizonte para a geração distribuída, né? Hoje nós estamos com reservatórios praticamente todos cheios, né? Mais de 80%, à exceção do Sul. E, quer dizer, o que nós vamos fazer com essa energia com baixo preço, né? Então, não tem sentido você trabalhar com leilões, né? Mais uma vez, fomos impactados pela cancelamento de leilão de solar, né, Rodrigo? Eu acho que onde a Solar prometia muito nesse leilão que foi cancelado agora. Mas enxergar a retomada da geração distribuída como contribuinte para o crescimento nosso, eu acho muito importante, viu? Acho que a atuação do governo tem que ser firme nesse sentido. Tá?
I'll try to resume and to translate a bit. So Antonio was welcome everyone. So saying good morning. He had some troubles with his internet in the beginning, so he couldn't join us before. But he totally agree with what Rodrigo says and what he just said and explained about the market in Brazil, the challenge that we are facing, and how the market was evolving, how the market was planning the next steps for modernizing and renewing our framework of regulation, everything. But now with this change in demand, change in the consumption and also the availability of energy, mainly our hydro sector, we have full reservoirs in most of the regions. And due to the COVID, a lot of auctions were postponed, and so completely different scenario. But Antonio sees the distributed generation as a very strong horizon of growth, and it can be a very interesting way to overreact and surpass the crisis. And we were discussing some changes on the regulation through last year, and now I think this change on the regulation might be seen in another way, and he really trusts that the distributed generation can help us to get things up and working. I'm here at the office. Unfortunately, we cannot stop. I'm gonna show you a bit. The operation cannot totally stop because we have a lot of, so we are here. Unfortunately, of course, most of our team is at home. We are operating with 30% of our workforce, and mainly the administration guys and financial, legal, they are at the office, but the operation must go on. And we are doing our best to keep jobs and to keep the market growing. Of course, we had to put some guys on vacation, mandatory vacation. We had to cut some positions. As Rodrigo was saying, we had difficulty with supplying for equipments, and the dollar went like really high. So it's yes, it's increased like 25-30%, and we have a direct impact on our procurement and everything. But we are doing our best in order to keep things going and prepare ourselves to the finish of the spreading of the virus, so that we can be strong to fulfill the market with equipments, with projects, and to make it go. Of course, the economy will suffer a lot. I think the distributed generation can be, of course, a very strong force in order to make things go back to what we had. But if the economy is not very good, people won't buy, and so there will be, of course, an effect on sales and on the market. But I think we will handle that.
Good.
Okay, so thank you so much, Lucas. And do we have someone more to the discussion? Let me just check. I think we are okay. Okay, so so we exchanged the experiences, and I would like to ask you, like, how do you see during the next few months how the business will continue? Are you able to, to maintain the business, and do you introduce any security measures, some special way of working? So maybe I will start, Lucas, with you, because you are the biggest company in the country.
Yes, we are operating in different states here in Brazil, but our main office and our main operations here in São Paulo. And the government just extended the quarantine period until 10th of May, isn't it, Rodrigo? So the state will suffer a bit more, but it's like healthy safety, and we will respect that. So as Rodrigo was explaining, we have like a federal orientation, but each state is taking its own decisions on how to manage the circulation of goods, of people, and of the workforce. But I think it will be, we will have some troubles in getting people to the office in the next 2 months. And I think April and May will stay, most of people will stay at home. After that, I think on June, beginning of June and July, I think things will back to reality. But it's gonna be two tough months for us, because as we are explaining, the financial
the cash flow.
Yes, sorry?
I would say that the cash flow situation will be the most difficult.
The cash flow situation for most of our clients, and of course for us, is challenging. We have like thousands of clients, and a lot of them are calling to us, Lucas, I know I had to pay you, but could you postpone the payment, because my client's not paying me, so I don't have money to pay you. And we are doing the same with the suppliers. We are negotiating the terms of payments, and the same with the banks. So I think it's the whole chain feels the problem. So, and that's very, very challenging for us and for our clients, and because the final customer is facing troubles. Like it's
the whole value, the whole chain.
The whole chain. It's an owner of a restaurant. He installed the solar in the restaurant, and he closed the restaurant. It's not working anymore, so he doesn't have earnings for paying for the PV and for our client and then for us. So it's a whole chain. And I think this might still happen for the next 2 months. The market's still going on, as Rodrigo was saying. We have some installation happening in some states, and as it's like it's not at the office, it's a open space, and there's not like too many people, and work's still going on. So we are constructing some solar power plants around Brazil. And some states we had to stop, but some other we are moving on, and I think that's the way it will be for the next 2 months. And after that, I hope that the COVID goes down and the economy starts to redo and grow again, and the country can.
I would like to really use this opportunity afterwards when Leonardo watches this film that we are, crossing fingers. Yes.
Yes, for sure.
I know that especially for the companies which were growing so quickly, it must be very difficult. Yes, because when you are accustomed to grow and suddenly something stops, is I think the most difficult. Yes. But you see, like I believe that most of us we are passionates and we are also disruptors. Yes. So if something is disrupting, it's not putting us down, but it motivates us even more. Yes.
Yes, for sure.
And that's why I would suggest, because you see, maybe you could have some, because like Marcelo today is speaking with the government of Argentina. Carlos then has a meeting with authorities of Chile. Rodrigo is always in touch with the government. Miguel, he has experience from the Congress. Antonio, also one of the most involved decision makers. So what would be your advices between, you see, like if you can, for example, give some advice to your colleagues from other countries. So who would like to say?
I'd like to add something to the whole situation on a marketing perspective. Thank you, Thomas, for putting this event together. We have been talking in the last weeks, and I'm really glad that this is happening. I think it's a success to see people from all over the world getting together, especially at the C-level people and government representatives. So this really accelerates our comprehension of the issues that we are facing globally. And COVID came to show us that we all the same. I mean, we have the same problems today with the confination and the quarantine. Like Miguel was saying, we Latin people, when we have big families and we're all together in the room, we may have some stress going on. But let's talk about the market. I mean, when we look at the chain, it's not only solar, but I mean, it's one person that buys from the other, from the other, and then when one stops paying the other, then this just goes on. But the point here is, before we didn't have time. When you're going to talk to some people, they were all busy, and now we do have a lot of time. And one of the things, it's what we are doing with the time that we have at home. And first thing, I see a lot of people are really starting to study, and the education, it's really booming right now. One thing that happened, you're always talking about disruption, and we are living disruption. I mean, this digital transformation were supposed to happen in 2 years from now, and now it's just here, and we need to adapt. So recently, one of the presenters of the Shark Tank Brazil, Caíto Maia, he owns glasses shop in Brazil, and he was talking about what he did, because he had 900 stores that are closed during lockdown. So, and he got thousands of employees. And what he was saying was this: first thing he did was make sure that all the employees were safe, they were at home, and they were in good health. And then the second thing, he went to the company structure, and he was analyzing all the costs that he could reduce. So one of the areas that costs can be reduced it's information technology. Of course, now we have tools and we have different providers, especially here in Brazil, when you have cloud or other systems operating overseas, you pay in US dollars. And this was a big difference because the dollar rate skyrocket. So if you have a big contract in US, one of the things that it's suggested to the market is that you try to move the systems to operate locally in Brazil. So that way you reduce your cost, and this reduction can be at least 20%, depending on what you use and what's your demand. Another area, of course, it's energy. And we need to understand that the market is still small because of information didn't reach some people that can really make projects, and they can invest, and they can reduce their electric bill. So I see that we have an opportunity, but also other thing that we see is that we need to have this social responsibility and understand that if we provide the proper information to the market, then we can generate more opportunities to people. So I would say that this could be a chance for more people to be prepared to get into the market when we get back on track, because a lot of people, they are going to lose their jobs, and we need to face it, like not only solar, but the renewables and everything that we've been talking about. I
Actually,
mean,
we are speaking
they're
about
gonna expand.
the whole paradigm. Yes, we are changing the whole paradigm. Yes. And
Yeah.
clean energy, clean tech is the part which will be powering this change of the paradigm. So we still have, guys, around 19 minutes. So maybe I will give a floor to our international guests, because on Friday, we have the whole session devoted to Brazil, okay?
Brazil, yes. Carlos wants to talk, and then Miguel, I think so.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Okay,
Carlos.
thanks. I would like first say that the energy sector is a long-term thinking sector, okay? Of course, we have a large cash flow problem in every country. Customers, some local suppliers may be in trouble, and we need to care of it. And in the case of Chile, the government provided very low cost financing line of $20 billion, with is guaranteed by the government for companies with sales less than $40 million or something like this. It's small, medium businesses for us. This is safe help for companies who are mostly distributed generation. Of course, large utilities are outside of this program. But also larger companies probably have more strength to pass this period. Of course, it's very different if the duration of this period is 3 months, 6 months, or a year. Of course, if it is a year, we'll be everybody in big problems. Most of the companies are doing at this moment new projects. I mentioned that we have more than 2.5 gigawatts in construction for solar, and other 1.7 gigawatts in solar and other technologies also. And the idea of the industry is to keep this project running, because it's not only because of the contractual commitments that those projects have, that is mostly with the distribution companies with supply that start this year, next year, and the following year. but also there's a social commitment because these companies are doing investment throughout the whole country, and they mean a lot for local investment in places where no other possibility of investment exists. So if they stop their operations, they will affect the local suppliers that help them to build the plant. That's very important. We calculate that the construction of this amount of plants is amounts for about 60,000 FTEs for a year. That's about 30,000 FTEs for 2 years and so on. So it's a very important employee because it's not only low level, low skill employees. It's technicians, engineers, some foreign advisors, and so it's a very important driver for the industry. So there's also an interest of the government, but we have not been able to convince this with the government, because government is trying to pass the cost, as I said, of a social program for mostly for residential consumers that may cost the financial cost of having up to $250 to $550 million financing. That could mean $25 million or $30 million that should be supported by the industry. It seems small amount when you consider the amount of sales, but the Chilean market became a very competitive one, very, very, very competitive as opposed with many years ago. We have had tenders where the amount of energy that was offered was 6 to 7 times the energy that was to be awarded. So I mean that prices are very efficient in economical terms. But we see a light at the end of the tunnel, mainly because first case to mention first is that Chile already delivered the National Determined Contribution, the NDC, to United Nations, confirming that the country has the aim to be carbon neutral by 2050. This means also that we should decommission the whole coal-based fleet by 2040 or before. Before the crisis, we were working with the government to convince them to have the aim by 2030 as a goal to have no more coal in the system. We still see that this is a very important thing. We feel that in the country we have a lot of sensitivity about climate change. Climate change has not stopped because of the coronavirus. It's to keep advancing, unfortunately. This is a thing that we must have in mind, because we need a short-term sustainability. Of course, we need to pass this crisis, but of course, we need a livable world in the next years and decades. Still, there is a tender for the end of the year for 5,600 gigawatt hour a year. There has no news about this being cancelled. This tender for the distribution companies can be fulfilled by any kind of technology, but in the last years, all of these tenders have been won by renewable energies, wind, solar, water, and some biomass. The opportunity of green hydrogen is very important. It's an opportunity, not yet commercially implemented, but by having solar energy at perhaps $15 per megawatt hour, it's really a big possibility to become an exporter of energy and also user for the large demands that are the mining companies of green hydrogen. There are
market for us. Yes. It's a huge new potential market for
absolutely. This is the new LNG, and there are some programs supported by the government in order to promote the first experiences on this. Also, some companies such as Engie are very interested in this land, and we see a bright future in the north part of the country where solar energy is really very, very inexpensive. So it's mixed feelings and of course uncertainty. How long is this going to last? Personally, I am optimist, and I expect that some vaccine will be available soon, and with the right measure of social quarantines, we may handle this crisis and restart a world that, of course, will need time to become the world that it was in terms of demand before the crisis.
So maybe we have last 10 minutes. So very shortly, if someone would like to say in the bullet points, do you believe that we can turn this negative disruption, yes, into a positive clean tech disruption? And if yes, why? And what should be done? Yes, 3 bullet points. We have 10 minutes, so we will finish in 7.
I guess we should do another more panels, Tomas,
okay,
to talk about the Latin industry, because as my friend and my colleague from Chile and Brazil, there are different aspects and how you want to address this. The federal governments are trying to save their government, and that they're not in Mexico, and they're not trying to put money to save the industries. They're not going to help Acera or Viga or Cemex. So that's one problem. Then you have the people that I'm pretty sure that Chile and Brazil has, which they have to go to work every day. There's a lot of poor people in Mexico, people that have to go and work every day. You know, they don't have credit cards and they don't have savings in the banks. And if they don't go to work to find a way to make ends meet by the end of the day, they don't eat. And that's a reality in Mexico. And I think it's also happening in some other places. But the truth of the matter is that this will change everything in terms of perception. And I don't agree we're going to come back to the world that we were used to doing business. That's not going to happen. Wealth is changing hands. Just looking at the stock market, the market today opened at 1.4% down again, and that has brought other opportunities. People lost a lot of money, and a lot of people made a lot of money. So money is changing. But the reality of this whole COVID is that, yes, it brought us together in terms of technology. We now have Zoom and other technologies that are helping us do business, or at least stay in focus. But there'll be some losers and some winners, like always. I don't believe that things in our countries will be the same. I don't believe that everybody's going to be saved. And unfortunately, there will be people that will get sick and will die. And that is a reality that you have to look into this. It's we can try as a country or as a state or as professionals, people like myself, which just recently over the weekend, we helped other people, but it's difficult and it's emotional, and it's a personal thing in what's really happening. But the world is not going to end. And unfortunately, those are hard words, but the world will not end. In 2-3 months, it will get better if we keep on the social distancing, because that's another perception. In 2 months, things will go away and back to normal. That's not true. In 2 months, we will have our curves come down, but we will still have to have the social distancing, and we will still have to take measurements to be safe. It's not that the restaurants are going to open and tomorrow everybody's back at cheesecake. That's not going to be true. That's not going to happen. We will still have people eating tacos at the corner stand, and that's the other problem. So it's difficult to understand how we're going to mitigate this, but it's not going to be the same, and wealth has changed. Now, going back to the borders with the United States, meaning the industry, the maquiladora industry, that's not going to go away. That's going to continue booming because cheap labor. And for instance, in Mexico today, the market opened at 24 pesos per dollar. So Pfizer, Boeing, Mercedes-Benz, they stopped their operations, but when they open, for them, that is heaven. You know, they contract in pesos and they export in dollars. For the country, it's a problem because of their imports and exports, but for the maquiladora industry, it's just became 30% cheaper to produce in Baja California and the border. So where do you see this? winners and losers, social impact, not social impact, problems to the people in Mexico, or do we want the country? You have hotel industry right now, they're all closed, they're hurting. You got the airlines, they're hurting. But yeah, you can say the airlines are hurting, but China, it's laughing. They just bought 30% of Boeing this morning. So Boeing is not going to go away. So I know there's some issues in terms of social impact and the living of how we're living and what's next in the terms of living. But in terms of the economies of the world, they're changing, they're shifting, and they won't be the same. But I believe that the economies of the world will come back, and the big industries are not going to go away because there's always demand for things. And the crazy thing about it, and this is just a joke between ourselves here at the border, you would think that Starbucks will close. No, they closed their front shop, but there's 50 cars right now on the Starbucks at the corner, people lining up to buy coffee, and they're still paying $4 or $5 for their coffee. So they're not going to go away. You know, the people just didn't.
Sorry, because we have still 3 minutes. So what I suggest, because now you are negotiating with your governments, yes? I suggest maybe in 1 or 2 weeks, we can, in 1 or 2 weeks, we can make another call, yes? Just really to exchange experiences between different countries. What did you reach? What did you achieve? And you see, as I'm not from Latin America, you don't need to be jealous about me, so I can coordinate, yes, between different countries.
Yeah, we should.
I can make, like for my friends from Latin America, so I can help you to coordinate. And then if I have involvement from your side, we can also invite people from other countries. And let's make really like a call to exchange, not like a commercial, but really between us, to exchange information. How do we cope with the COVID? Which are the solutions, and what would be the advices for your members, for your partners? And then we can even, you see, make like one link and we can share with everybody. And also what we can arrange, we can make it in Portuguese, for example, and Spanish. Yes. So because on Zoom, there's an opportunity of translation.
Well, and one more thing that I would like to put on the table is for this, share experience. For instance, the gentleman from Chile talked about wind projects. I have a lot of experience. I got 15 years of experience in wind projects. I'm more than gladly to share how we do wind projects. How do we measure? I'm pretty sure Lucas or Mr. Antonio or Carlos have more experience in solar projects than I have. You know, we should share. How do we put our projects together? We're not direct competitors. We talked about gas, LNG gas projects.
Rodrigo and Carlos, our dream team, Latin America group. Yes, and then yes, and then let's follow up. Yes, let's not just leave this like a discussion, but let's make something out of this. Everybody, of course, is agreeing. Yes, who is for? Okay, everybody is agreeing. So thank you so much once again. And if you need anything, just let us know. Any other information from other countries, we are always available. Yes, and you can contact us through Wesley and through Antonio, through Lucas, through Miguel. Yes, and the most important, you see,